Zack Wilson grew up well off with a silver spoon in his mouth, and he's part of this younger generation who I think really doesn't know how to accept accountability, and it reeks of it when he steps to the podium. He's one of those kids, in my eyes, that grew up with the silver spoon. He seems entitled. He's like, nothing is my fault. Even when I mess up, it's still not my fault, and that bothers me, man.
I picked the Jets +7. What the was I thinking?
I don't know.
This guy stinks. This Zack Wilson guy, he stinks at football.
Yeah.
Now listen, I understand that he's incredibly handsome. What's your problem? This guy sucks.
Yeah,
he
sure.
does, dude.
No, Laura, they have made a quarterback change. Tim Boyle will start Friday's game against the Miami Dolphins. Zack Wilson sent to the bench, and not only sent to the bench, but demoted to third string.
So, 2021's second overall pick has now not just been benched, but relegated to third string. And the true starter is hurt, so technically he's fourth.
As an offense, though, I mean, when you guys are only able to score 3 points, the defense only lets up 3 points. I mean, do you feel like you let the defense down at all?
No.
Fault. Even when I mess up, it's still not my fault, and that bothers me, man.
And while much of this falls on Zack for the attitude he came into the league with, lack of accountability, kind of the spoiled brat approach, but I did think he showed some growth before his time was said and done.
Can't take it personal. It's not a shot, and I understand it's not a shot at me. I know Salah would never do that. I understand the situation in itself. Everyone's gonna keep fighting, even though I'm not on the field. I'm gonna do everything I can to keep helping.
Bro, I've been watching content about NFL quarterbacks for 20 years now, and I've been hardwired to believe that a quarterback's maturity is one of, if not the key component to their NFL success. But I want to entertain the possibility that I, and maybe you, have been hit with some misdirection that we weren't prepared for. You know, when the fake be so good that the cameraman get lost, that's the type of trick play that the league may have pulled on us. Some quarterbacks are outliers. They're gonna have success wherever they go. But we get in trouble when we start thinking that those guys are the norm. A lot of quarterbacks we've seen look drastically different depending on the coach and the system and the players that surround them. So if we know that a coach can affect a player to that extent positively, then it stands to reason that they could also have a drastic effect in the other direction. So if we don't go for the fake and we get the cameraman to keep the camera on the coach for a second, we'll oftentimes realize that it's not just the quarterback who slipped and fell flat on their back. Back in 2021, The Ringer dropped an article asking what's more important than quarterback development. On one side of the spectrum, you got nature. On the other side of the spectrum, you've got nurture. Nature versus nurture, meaning is the quarterback's natural, physical, and mental strengths the most important factor when it comes to determining his success, or is the environment he lands in the most important thing? To get an answer, they looked at their recent history and asked how many first and second round QBs were drafted between 2011 and 2018. And of those quarterbacks, how many actually signed a second contract with the team that drafted them? They started in 2011 because that's the start of the modern NFL, and they cut it at 2018 so they had 3 years to evaluate. Then they took those quarterbacks who fit the criteria and they wanted to see how many were drafted to good teams versus how many were drafted to bad teams, so that they can measure what effect environment had on their success. It's a good method when it comes to measuring nature versus nurture, because the natural, better, more highly touted prospects are seen as having more talent but go at the top of the draft, therefore going to much worse teams, aka worse environments. While players perceived as slightly less talented or slightly lower tiered prospects go later in the first round, but they go to better situations with very clear and pronounced environmental advantages. Ownership, continuity with the staff and the roster. Maybe the coaching is just mad but you're surrounded with great weapons. Or maybe your weapons are mid but you got a great line and a great defense. The way I see it, all of that factors into environment, which kind of fits perfectly with the term they used, nurture. So who wins, bro? The natural freaks that go in the top 5, or the solid to good prospects who go to better situations? Before we talk about the results, just so y'all know, here's how they define good versus bad situation. A good situation was a team who had either made the playoffs within the previous 2 seasons or had a combined winning record over those 2 years. A bad team was the opposite, had not made the playoffs in 2 years and didn't have a winning record over the past 2 years. So that's your good situation versus your bad situation. So the top quarterbacks, the dudes at the top of the draft who went to worse situations, only made it to their second contract 32% of the time during that time frame. But the slightly lower tier prospects who went to better situations got to a second contract 64% of the time, which is double the hit rate despite dealing with lesser prospects. But it got even crazier when they dug a little deeper. They found that John Elway was the only person keeping it close. As the former quarterback great was notoriously bad at drafting his own position. If he wasn't already a Hall of Famer, Elway couldn't really pick him. But when they took out the draft picks that Elway specifically missed on, just take out all the Broncos picks, then picks who went to good teams made it to their second contract 82% of the time, bro. Damn. So if you went in the first or the second round to a team that made the playoffs within 2 years before you was drafted and you didn't get picked by Elway, then 82% of the time you was gonna sign a second contract with your team. Bro, the only takeaway from that particular set of data is that for a quarterback, man, going into a competent situation is the #1 predictor of success in the league. With that said, let's look at the situation Zack Wilson was drafted into. So before Zack was drafted, the Jets hadn't made the playoffs since the 2010-2011 season, bro, and they had not had a winning season since 2015, so this definitely would qualify as a really bad situation. And once he got there, the situation didn't get no better. First off, he arrived in a quarterback room with very little veteran support. All he had was Mike White and James Morgan, two guys who had not thrown an NFL pass between the two of them, so not really a whole lot of experience to lean on. Now he also had Josh Johnson, who does have a lot of experience as a backup for many teams, but never as the main guy. I'm pretty sure he can offer some valuable advice to a young quarterback, but it ain't exactly like RG3 mentoring Lamar Jackson. He had a first-year offensive coordinator, a first-year quarterback coach, and a first-year head coach who was a defensive-minded guy. So the Jets gave this man a very inexperienced quarterback room, a very inexperienced coaching staff, a bad O-line, and not many tools to work with within year one. So while Zack will have to wear that tag of being a bust, if you take a look at some of this research, then you take a look at Zack Wilson's situation, on top of the fact that he's not like a generational quarterback, then the outcome of this thing was pretty damn predictable. So the Jets deserve to share in some of the blame. But when Robert Saleh said he saw the whole Zack Wilson saga as a series of unfortunate events, believe it or not, there's actually a ton of truth to that statement. Let's take a closer look. A lot of people may not know this, but the Jets didn't intend to leave rookie Zack Wilson with all these rookie coaches. They hired longtime renowned offensive coordinator and QB coach Greg Knapp specifically to work with Zack. Greg has some experience as an NFL player, having been on practice squads from '86 to '94, but his true calling was coaching, which he did in different capacities from the time he retired as a player to, well, we'll get to that. Greg coached players like Steve Young, helped develop Michael Vick, and even coached Peyton Manning with the Broncos. So a whole lot of experiences with different types of quarterbacks at different stages during their careers. Now he was going to be tasked with coaching Zack Wilson and helping to nurture this talent into an NFL pro. But in between the time Zack was drafted by the Jets and his rookie season kicked off, tragedy would strike. Zack's QB coach, who was hired specifically to develop him into a pro, tragically passed away. Bro, he was hit by a car while riding his bicycle, was left in critical condition and tried to fight it, but 5 days after the accident happened, he sadly passed away in the hospital bed. So as far as I know, that was the first unfortunate event. It's weird, it's random, it's extremely dark, and they should have hired someone else, but again, this happened like a month before the season was set to kick off. So one thing leads to another, and they end up going with a rookie quarterback coach who answers to the rookie offensive coordinator who answers to the rookie coach, all trying to answer questions from this rookie quarterback, and the backups ain't got no experience, bro. It's really not ideal. Back during that time frame, 3-time Pro Bowl quarterback Matt Hasselbeck spoke on the situation. He said, quote, Zack's gonna have to be Superman in a lot of ways that people will never see. It's not even about just throwing a football. He can obviously do that as well as anybody in the world. But who's sitting with him in a cold tub when he's got 2 broken ribs and he had a bad game and they're playing on a short week? Who's coaching him through? I'm not saying that he can't be successful. It just doesn't feel like he's in the same fertile soil. Now you might hear this as him making excuses for Zack. And maybe you get a little bit tired of guys like Hasselbeck or Orlowski always going out of their way to make excuses for quarterbacks. And I say maybe you get a little tired of it because I get a little tired of it. But when you ask why they do it, the answer smacks you in the face. As a parent, right, when you see another parent having a hard time or going through something with their kid, you're a lot more likely to empathize. Reason being because you've probably been in a similar situation or at least had a close-up view of a similar situation. When I see content creators in the news and my boys be talking about it, I be like, yeah, but you don't really know what it's like to be in that situation. I can empathize because I've been there, or maybe I've been close, or maybe it's just the proximity that lets me see it from a different angle. Matt Hasselbeck was drafted over 20 years before Zack into a very different league and a very different situation. So remember I said Zack had 2 backup quarterbacks who between the 2 of them had not thrown a single pass? Rookie head coach, rookie coordinator, rookie quarterback coach. That was his support staff when he joined the Jets. When Matt Hasselbeck came in and joined the Packers, granted this was way back in 1998, he had future Hall of Famer Mike Holmgren as his head coach. Bro, his quarterback coach was Andy Reid, and the backup quarterback that he got to learn from was current head coach Doug Peterson. Not to mention the starting quarterback was Hall of Famer Brett Favre, and after 3 years of sitting behind all of them, Hasselbeck still said he felt like he was not ready. He said, quote, "At that time, they believed it was important to invest in the room." Now, like I said at the beginning, generational QBs or the most elite prospects can overcome a lot, but every quarterback is not a generational talent, and teams got to do a better job of holding up their end of the bargain. Maybe you can't get all these Hall of Famers in the room, but do the kid a favor and at least get some experience in the room. The situation with Coach Greg Knapp, of course they could not plan for that, but outside of that, bro, everything else could have been done better. But this one move they made, I really liked, even though it ultimately didn't work out in the end. The whole Aaron Rodgers Jet saga could be seen as a negative. In a lot of situations, you don't want Aaron coming in and stunting the growth of your young quarterback. But in this situation, the Aaron Rodgers addition was one of, if not the most positive thing that happened to Zack Wilson since he came to the Jets. All in one, he got a surefire first ballot Hall of Famer with all the QB knowledge that you ever could ask for. Been big chilling under the spotlight for years, some for the better and some for the worse. Then he caught Aaron at the perfect time in his career when he was focused on being a great teammate and mentor. And he's not coming just to mentor, he's coming to start. So you get the knowledge and you get to sit back and watch. This was a great move by the Jets, bro. Another open shot. They drew up a play, set some screens, and they got a good look. You give Zack a chance to reboot and develop in the background, because you improved the roster the last 2 years, but Zack was broken during that time. So he needed that chance to sit back and reboot behind Aaron. And in a short period of time, you saw the maturity start to grow.
As an offense, though, I mean, when you guys are only able to score 3 points, the defense only lets up 3 points. I mean, do you feel like you let the defense down at all?
No.
Just saying to you, what are you guys talking about?
Yeah, it's on me. Critical situation. I can't have a play like that. I cannot drop the ball. And this team is sacrificing a lot. Guys are making plays. Defense was making plays. Was making it clear to those guys that I need to be better. I need to be better on the little things, the details. It can't happen.
This move meant that ideally Zack would learn how to deal with the media, learn how to command the huddle, learn how to truly watch film, learn hella tricks of the trade, see what all goes into it, and get first-hand advice from one of the best to ever do it. Making it even more perfect, Aaron didn't plan to play long, so he was cool with helping Zack. And bro, the man even said that he hoped that one day he could take that baton, pass it back to Zack Wilson, and then he continues on the legacy. I ain't saying that was gonna all work out, but given the way Zack's career started and the way the first couple years played out, this was a plan that could fix everything. It had a chance to work, which at this point is all that they could ask. But unfortunate event number 2 then takes place right on cue as A-Rod goes down during the first series of the first game of the Jets season. So Zack didn't get to sit on the sideline and watch Aaron play one game. Didn't get to sit in the film room and break down one game. He got to watch a little preseason action, but I'm talking real games, man. 4 quarters of Aaron Rodgers doing his damn thing. So, before the reboot is complete, before it's even close to complete, Zack's thrown back in the fire. You ever reboot your computer but it doesn't reboot fully? And the only way you can start it up is to put that mug in safe mode. Your apps don't run right, everything moving slow, the resolution looking fuzzy. That was this year's Zack Wilson. And you can see some slight improvement, but he was not ready. He needed at least a couple of months to truly sit behind Aaron. But since he had to go back out on the field early, it sped along what could be the end of his career as a starter. Now there's several situations out there a lot worse than the Jets. At least the Jets got a couple weapons and a good defense. And I like Robert Saleh. I think dude's a solid coach, but not the right coach to develop a rookie quarterback. It's like they went out and hired a 5-star dentist, then brought him into the office and said, perform this LASIK surgery. Bro, I thought y'all needed a root canal. So now your teeth healthy as hell, but you still can't see. In the future, bro, teams who plan to draft a quarterback high, bro, get some vets in the quarterback room. And if you're bringing in a new head coach, get one with a track record of developing quarterbacks. And I'm not trying to throw away defensive coaches, but you should pair a defensive coach with a veteran quarterback. Somebody who's developed, who knows what their job is. Think Brady with Belichick or Manning with Tony Dungy. Now, if you got a defensive head coach who's really a good coach, say a long tenured guy like Vrabel or Mike Tomlin, obviously at some points you're gonna have to pair them with young quarterbacks. That's when you gotta invest crazy into the quarterback room. OC, quarterback coach, veteran quarterback. You need all of it. That way your defensive-minded coach ain't calling the rookie out during the post-game press conference of the first preseason game. I don't know if y'all remember that, but that's what happened with Malik Willis. But it seems like Vrabel has learned his lessons with Will Levis, and Pittsburgh's finally admitting that Matt Canada is not him. To be clear, I don't think these young quarterbacks are great, and that everything should be blamed on the offensive coordinator. This is just a specific perspective I'm choosing to look at the situation from. And I think we know that when you view something from a couple different perspectives, you get a much broader view of the whole situation. But a better situation doesn't necessarily mean that Zack Wilson would have turned into an elite quarterback. He was born into a great situation. Wealthy parents and a dad who coaches means access to any resource, any camp, any trainer, great football situation. And with all of that going for him, he was just a 3-star recruit. You know, basically an okay quarterback who had some potential. So even in the perfect situation in the league, he might have still got those same results. He also came in with a lack of leadership skills and didn't have a high level of maturity. So things like that was going to always make the transition tough. But it begs the question, would the right amount of nurture overcome nature in this situation? I don't have a concrete answer, but I'll leave you with this. A quick story that supports more of the nurture theory. Alex Smith was the first overall pick back in 2005 to a very different 49ers team than the one you know. In 2005, San Fran was coming off back-to-back losing seasons. After all, they had the first pick in the draft, and they earned that mud, bro. So Alex shows up, and the QB room is filled with 7th-round picks, with not a lot of game experience, a bad offensive line, and a constantly revolving door of offensive coordinators. Alex failed in his first stop due in part to these factors, but in his stint with Kansas City, he was far better and more consistent. When he got there in 2013, he got support from Coach Andy Reid and an offensive staff that featured Doug Peterson, who keeps popping up, Matt Nagy, who might not be a great head coach but was a fire assistant, and Eric Bieniemy. Pretty nice staff. So after basically being a bust, Alex Smith made his first Pro Bowl that year. This is after being drafted number 1 overall a whole 8 years earlier, bro. Damn, that's a long time. So his nature hadn't changed. It was the nurturing environment that allowed him to get the most out of his quarterback talent. Then towards the end of his career, he was able to help out another quarterback who seems to have the best of both worlds, nature and nurture. And it's impossible to say Mahomes wouldn't have been great no matter where he landed, but we really don't know. All we know for sure is that it takes the right environment to bring out the best in what a QB has to offer.
I learned a ton from Alex Smith. I mean, I attribute a lot of my success, especially so early in my career, to him. I mean, the way he was able to go about it, being a professional, going out there and having a great year that he had my first year, and just seeing how he went about every single day and how to game plan and how to recognize coverages. And he didn't hold anything back from me. I mean, he taught me that's just the type of person he was and that he is. And I attribute a lot of my success to him.